So I'll use that. Now, the next step, and this is going to be the wrist killer or trigger finger killer. What we're going to be doing is taking the top piece of the turntable, and what you've done is, if you're doing this the cheap way, you can do it one of two ways. You can either leave it a solid plate, or you can cut out the hole. I need to cut out the hole because I'm actually putting some lights to this. Cut it out. I use a Dremel and just cut this out. It can be rough, it can be jagged, it's all right, but you want to cut about 1 inch in from the edge. What we're now going to be doing is attaching the cake dish into the turntable piece. So once it's laid onto the base and the motherboard area, it's going to give a little bit better look. But we got to get rid of this lip here. To do that, yes indeedy, we're going to be using hot glue to fill in all the way around. You don't have to worry about gluing this down first because you're going to be using so much hot glue, it's going to negate that. It's going to completely seal it in there. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that your glue is really, really hot when you're putting it in there, so when it pours in, it settles down and lays kind of flat. Will it be perfect? No, but that's okay. That's the beauty about Ghostbusters. Your Proton pack doesn't have to look perfect. So, because Egon built these in his workshop. So just start squirting it in there, and you pour it in until it gets nice and level. Where I used up that stick. You're going to go through a couple of sticks doing this. I'm just going to warn you right now. So just keep pouring it in. You want to make it so that it's level to the lip of the turntable. You're covering the lip of the cake pan, but you're getting it all the way up. Again, the beauty of the hot glue, it's self-leveling. When you get it good and hot, it'll pour out and level to the shape that you want it to be. So when it gets painted, it'll have the illusion of one solid piece. Go slow because your glue stick won't melt as fast as you want to move. That's okay, just take it nice and slow all the way around. Now I'm right at the end, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the glue heat up really, really good right now. So that way when it pours in, it'll really level out and match up with where I started. So I'm just going to let that sit for just a minute or two. Let the glue in this chamber heat up really good, so when it oozes out, it's going to be lava. Looking good all the way around. And here we go. Alright, I'll only use about 2 sticks, not too bad. Again, I'm going to let that settle for just a minute. Because if you start to move it, the glue just finished, it'll drip out and get out of shape, and you don't want that to happen. And it's nice and warm too. Now one thing you do have to watch out with using your glue gun, as I was using it for putting in the Clippard Minimatic into the motherboard, anytime you use the glue gun, please be careful of the glue spider webs. The trails you leave from the tips. Try and get as many of those as possible. Pick them off, look for them very carefully, because if you don't, when you go to paint, you're going to have colored spider webs all over your work. So one thing you want to make sure of is checking for glue gun spider webs. And that's how it looks when you're all done. Again, you can get into the compartment. Get out of the light. That congeal just for a second. Now I'm going to show you how that's going to look on the motherboard. Here is the motherboard as we got it so far. And this is going to go on just like that. Now the way you're going to be mounting the case, the way you're going to be mounting this on top of here is you're literally going to be drilling 2 pilot holes and just using wood screws and going right through it. And it'll go right through the plastic, right through the wood glue, and that's all you're going to need to hold this on here. And that's actually a good thing to only having 2, secure points, is if you ever need to get in here and do repairs or change things out, you can easily get back into it, because all you got to do is remove the bumper, take out the screws, and there you go. So that's going to do it for this step. Once that's done, we're next going to be starting to apply the Romex boxes on the surface, and then it's going to be time for paint. So we're almost done. Okay, now the time we've all been waiting for, assembly time. This is where you get to be creative with your own Proton pack. And it goes down to my personal philosophy of all the Ghostbuster gear. The Ghostbusters equipment was all homemade by Egon Spengler, so technically there's no real wrong way to make these. Whatever you want to do, and it will be accepted into the Ghostbuster community. Yes, there are certain features that you want to do. You would definitely want to try and get the cyclotron motor as best you can. There's a blue power station here that lights up, and the configuration is pretty much the same, but that's where you get to start having fun. That's when I said when you go buy the electrical Romex boxes, lay them out however you want to. If you want to get certain sizes, get them and just play with them on your field. This is the situation or the layout that I like to do. I get a 4 Romex box, I get a 1 Romex box, it has a nice round of curves, and I get a rounded one. I get a 1 Romex box, and then another 2, and another 2, and I just get them all different varying shapes and sizes. I do this because it adds, heights and different levels, and then it also adds, the element of, it definitely looks like it's been homemade. So that's the beauty of these pieces. Now, if you're gonna be adding anything like tubes or wires or hoses, you want to make sure you put these down before you start gluing these down, or in my case, we're going to be screwing them down. Because once they're down, they're pretty much going to be very difficult to obviously take off and mount these on here and get them secure. So in my case, I know I'm going to be running a hose around here, so I got these 2 hose clamps, and it's the same kind of hose clamp that I use over here on the cyclotron motor. In the case, what I do is I drill a hole for the screw part, get it on there, and then I use my, the glue, the epoxy glue. I glue them down on the inside, that way I know they're not going to move. Again, for anywhere you're going to put the reflectors, those have to be done. And on this case, there's going to be a tube that's going to be mounted on here that was drilled in, again glued down. So anything that's going to be glued onto here, you need to make sure you do that before you start attaching them. Now, there will be some secondary adornments that are going to be done with different bottle caps and screws. Those can be done after these are mounted. So once you have the layout of how you want it to go, what you're going to do then is take them off one by one and then draw a pencil line or where around they're going to go. Now in my case, I'm going to be screwing them down, and that way I don't have to worry about the glue breaking off or anything coming off on these things. So what I've got is a handy dandy tool. Meet Mr. Coat Hanger that I've devised. What I'm going to be doing once I have one of my Romex boxes in place, I'm just going to put this through the screw holes, take my hammer and tap it, and that way I know exactly where the screw holes are going to go, and that way I can also come back later and take a nail, put a nail, tap it down even more. That way I have a good pilot hole, so that way I can screw it down easily. Another thing you're going to be wanting to put down on your Romex boxes is obviously the attachment of where your proton wand or neutron wand is going to be going. I know mine is going to be going, they pretty much always go on, let's see what's looking at it correctly, it's going to be on the right side of your proton pack. So you're going to be using whatever clamp you're going to be using, and you're going to be screwing that on first. Now what I recommend doing is what I do here is I find the size of the clip that I'm going to use, and I make a block of wood. block of wood is going to go on the inside of the box. Clip goes on the outside. That way when I screw it on, the screw has something to go into more than just a few millimeters of PVC plastic. Again, you don't have to worry about this breaking off when you do this step. So again, what I'll do is I'll drill through, put a screw down, and then the screw will go all the way through the block of wood. And that's going to happen for here and also on the Neutron wand. I have another block of wood that's going to go inside of here, and then the other part of the clip, secondary clip, is going to go get mounted onto there. Now, you might be wondering where I got my clips. This is a very, very hard piece of equipment to come by. The classic piece is a Dixie cup holder. You don't see Dixie cup holders very much often. Here's your updated version of this. Find anyone or anybody who gets water delivered to their house, the big 5-gallon jugs of water. They'll have a water dispenser. Those people, when they just deliver those waters, they have cup holders that they put on there. They are made of aluminum and they're very strong. This is what I'm using. We have a person that delivers water at my place of work. I asked them for extra cup holders. They will give you these. There's no question about it. They always have extras on their truck. Say, hey, next time you deliver water, can I get an extra cup holder? Break off the bracket that's mounted onto the dispenser, and then it always comes with a clip that's ready to mount. These are perfect for what you want to hold your Proton wand onto your Proton pack. So, with that said, I'm going to start assembling this down. I'm going to be screwing all these down, and you're going to see how this is going to start to take shape. All right? Let's get started. Another tip when you're working on this, make sure you work from the inside out. Otherwise, you're going to have a very hard time screwing down the pieces that are in the middle. So, I'm using these wood screws again after I've made my markings and my pilot holes. Put it on down there. And there will be some coaxing involved. Typically you only need 2 screws per box. And that holds it down just nice. The last thing to get mounted is going to be our cyclotron cover. Again, we're going to just center it up. You can do exact measuring if you want. And remember where the bead hit, where you lined up your beads of glue, if you want to cover that with a bumper, you want to line that up with the axis going across. And that looks very centered to me. That's our center line, goes straight across. Okay. We use our drill. You're going to drill straight through the metal, the glue, the plastic. And then screw that down. Okay, now that part again, I don't overcomplicate it, because if you have to get back in there to do any repairs, you don't want to have to spend a long process getting that off. So, let you see what we got here. Kind of hard to see there. I'll stand it. There we go. Now you notice there's a little gap right here. What I do is I take a big thick piece of PVC and I put it in between there so it looks like there's some more piping or conduit that goes in between the different boxes. And once we paint it all up, oh, it's going to look so good. So this is the step before painting.